gentlemen of the press, just to reiterate, we'll be starting soon, but please note that this side, where I'm pointing my right hand... Starts, please. The seats at the back, at the farmost end, are reserved for AU staff. So some of the journalists in the hall might have to stand. Sit. Thank you. Thoughts as the delegations and the heads settle down. Minimize any rowdiness. Thank you.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Chairperson of the Commission, to welcome each and every one of you individually and collectively for responding to our call at the short notice for such an important engagement. Excellencies, I'm told one of the inventions from Nigeria is individuals who are in the rooms, all the respected dignitaries in your respective capacities, your fully is absolutely important and absolutely critical. If we say we have to silence the guns by 2030, we are here to reflect on a movement. At this point, I would like to invite His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, the chairperson of the
former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, High Representative for the Horn of Africa, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, and estimated representatives of the government of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Chairman of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, President of Interim Regional Administration of Tigray, representative of African Development Bank, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, distinguished ambassadors, and invited guests. It is a great honor for me to welcome you to this remarkable event, marking the launch of the Lessons Learned report from the African Union-led peace process in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. I had the privilege of overseeing this mediation on behalf of the African Union, and today we present a report that encapsulates the invaluable lessons learned from this successful experience. This report, presented today to us, represents a significant effort by the African Union Commission to document the mediation process, which was proudly hosted by the government of the Republic of South Africa in Pretoria. It stands as a testament to our unwavering commitment to fostering sustainable peace and stability, not only in Ethiopia, but across the African continent. Indeed, the lessons learned report on the peace processes in Tigray, Ethiopia, in a critical endeavor led by the African Union Commission. In our pursuit of sustainable peace and stability in Ethiopia and across Africa, the Commission rigorously examined its peacemaking efforts in Tigray to guide future mediation initiatives. Moreover, the peace process in the Tigray region has attracted considerable regional and international interest, recognizing its significance not only for the people of Ethiopia, but also for the broader stability of the Horn of Africa. Amidst complex historical, ethnic, and political dynamics, the African Union had remained deeply committed to promoting peace and stability in northern Ethiopia through peacemaking and consolidation initiatives. Furthermore, this report serves as a testament to our dedication to learning and improving our approaches to facilitating peace across the continent. It aims at comprehensively analyze the challenges faced, the achievements, and most importantly, the lessons learned during the AU-led peace process. We intend to contribute to the broader discourse on conflict resolution, fostering an environment where our collective efforts yield lasting positive change. The compilation of this report would not have been possible without the unwavering dedication and cooperation of various stakeholders, including the Ethiopian government, the Tigray People Liberation Front, AU member states, regional and international partners, including the United States of America, the IGAD, the United Nations, the African Development Bank, the International Committee of the Red Cross, and local communities such as those in the Afar and Amhara regions. We express our profound gratitude to all of them. Additionally, this report analyzes the critical themes, including inclusivity, international collaboration, and implementation challenges. It provides a holistic view of the multifaceted nature of peacemaking, recognizing that effective strategies must be comprehensive. As we reflect on the lessons learned, it is imperative that the insights captured in this report shape diplomatic engagements and guide the design and implementation of mediation initiatives all over the continent. Lessons from the recent peacemaking effort in Tigray remind us that pursuing peace requires continuous adaptation and a commitment to understanding the specificities and complexities of each conflict. In conclusion, I extend my sincere gratitude to all those who have contributed to this report. May the lessons learned from this process guide us toward a future where Africa is characterized by enduring peace, prosperity, and unity. Let us join our efforts toward silencing the guns and achieving sustainable peace, security, and development in our mother Africa. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now our next speaker is His Excellency General Basanjo. General, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ba. Your Excellency Musa Faki Ahmed, Chairperson of AU Commission. You will allow me to stand on the protocol ably established by the Chairperson. Chairperson, I want to, on the outset, thank you most sincerely, because without the great unflinching support that you gave to us, we wouldn't have achieved what we have achieved. And so for me, the first lesson to learn is that at the highest level, there must be ownership, and ownership that devolves power, authority, in confidence and absolute trust to those who are given the responsibility on the job. Once again, on behalf of all of us, I thank you. We are, of course, honored to have led the African Union peace in making efforts in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. The leadership and the management of this mediation process by the African Union Commission are widely recognized as significant success. This report encapsulates the experiences, challenges, and triumphs of a complex and enlightening journey. The lesson learned include the ownership of the mediation process by Africans, strategic interactions, and the management of confidentiality. The African Union Commission's approach to managing third parties and the stakeholders who have varied, along with the availability of funds to maintain trust and confidence, is emphasized. This report offers a comprehensive overview of the context, initiation, negotiation, and challenges in the implementation phases of the peace process, emphasizing both successes and areas where challenges still persist. Talking about availability of funds, I believe that I should pay special tribute to Africa Development Bank for coming out very early in the process to give support, or in addition to the support that we got from the US, European Union, and other partners. The insights gathered reflect our shared commitment to peace, stability, security, and the welfare of the people of Ethiopia. They illustrate what can be accomplished through robust partnership towards a common goal. As we look to the future, we hope these insights will inspire and guide ongoing and future peacemaking efforts, contributing to a more peaceful and stable Africa. It is with profound honor that I launch the Lesson Learned report from the African Union-led peace process in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. This report encapsulates invaluable experiences and insights from a challenging and transformative mediation endeavor. The peace process in Tigray has demonstrated the resilience and commitment of all parties involved. The Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the Tigray People's Liberation Front have exhibited remarkable dedication to dialogue and reconciliation, establishing a solid foundation for rebuilding trust and fostering lasting peace. We also acknowledge the pivotal role played by the government of the Republic of South Africa in hosting the peace talks in Pretoria, and so do we for the follow-up meetings in Kenya. We appreciate the support of the Kenyan government. Their leadership and support have been instrumental in the success of this mediation. This report is not merely a record of outcomes, but a thorough analysis of the strategies, challenges, and successes encountered during the peace process. It guides future mediation efforts, emphasizing the importance of ownership, strategic planning, and stakeholder engagement, including the patience that must be exercised. Of course, different situations will require different approaches. We are not saying that what we have done in the case of Tigray will be one size fits all. But we are saying that there are certain principles, certain factors that are common and that must be understood and followed in any mediation or peacemaking effort. Importantly, this process exemplifies the principles of African solution to African problems with the support of African friends who share the same objective with Africa. It underscores the capability of African statesmen and institutions to resolve conflicts and foster peace within our continent. Before I conclude, two areas I want to just mention of the implementation of the peace effort are still outstanding, and I will appeal to all concerned, particularly our brothers in Tigray, that the DDR must not be allowed to be stalled. We must continue to get the DDR completed. And the issue of contested area, this area has to be taken as neutral area until it is resolved. And not doing that will hold back the implementation of the agreement. They are necessary that these two areas should not hold back the implementation. As we reflect on the lesson learned, let us pledge to implement these insights in future peace initiatives across our continent. May this report motivate ongoing efforts to achieve sustainable peace, security, and development in Africa in line with Agenda 2063. Thank you for listening.
If I am young as he is, I'm not sure how much of this I'll be able to do. I don't think any of us in this room perhaps will try to do what he is doing as done. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Won re-election. He was re-elected as the Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. And
Chairperson of the Commission, President of South Africa, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Tplf leadership, ladies and gentlemen, most painful. Because, as you know, such wars are between families, within families, brothers and sisters. So was the conflict in the Tigray region. But the lessons we are presenting, about 11 of them, shows a commitment in the Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, and the commission that Chairperson Faki has headed for about 8 years relate to generating, documenting, sharing best practices for posterity, for the future, and for the present. How did we come about this idea? Excellencies, we were looking for the Kenyan experience after the very dastardly act of post-election violence in the mid-2000s. And we could not find any record of how late former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, under the leadership of the AU, carried this out. So we felt we must not repeat such history. And let me really thank the two signatories, the brothers and sisters of the same country who contributed to this very good exercise. So what are the lessons? First, number one for us is African leadership. Thanks to the government of Ethiopia, Prime Minister Abey insisted on African union, mediation, and facilitation. That was very strategic. And TPLF also eventually came on board. It shows African solutions to African problems. Lesson number two for us is ownership. We have seen many peace talks and negotiations, but I've never seen any such negotiations that was locally owned to the extent that the two sides started engaging in Amharic. We became passengers in their train. They were leading us because they were conversing in their local language. That is unique. It shows that we must own our processes, particularly when they are inclusive. Lesson number three was that the choice of mediators on the side sanctioned and approved by Chairperson Faki reflected the regions of the continent, reflected gender inclusion, and ensured that we were able to rally those with the credibility to the point there was virtually no objection from the two sides. Lesson number four, directly or indirectly, we manage very well media engagement. In the days of social media, with AI, there were facts and fake news. There were fictional stories, and there were leakages. But in Pretoria, there was hardly any leakage. It shows that media management must be front and center of negotiations. This is also a very good lesson, lesson number 5, that when the key actors, in this case the parties, the African Union, the high-level panel, we must not forget that there are also other actors that both sides had confidence in. And this is what Ambassador Maikama called active observers. They were not just on the corridors. They were part and parcel of the process. So let me use this opportunity to acknowledge the United States of America, the United Nations, and IGAD for being such active observers. While we were waiting for the actors, for the signatories to come back and brief us, we were also engaging and anticipating, particularly with then SRSG Anna Tete, with Ambassador Mike Hammer, and ES Executive Secretary of IGAD, Mr. Walkney. Lesson number 6, and former President Olusegun Obasanjo referred to this. The financing of this process has been the most creative in the history of the African Union. A development bank investing in peace and security. It never happened before. The African Development Bank put in the requisite resources to fund the mediation process in a way that speaks to a nexus of peace, security, and sustainable development. Lesson 7. The host was fabulous. And let's use this opportunity to thank the government and people of South Africa. Indeed, the current South African ambassador was the chief of protocol. And for every step, including ensuring that the two parties were far apart, miles away from each other. And the first day, Chairperson Faki said, let's have a group picture. The two parties refused. But by the time they started speaking Amharic, at the end of the day, things changed. But South Africa must get the kudos for giving us the best facilities that I've seen for negotiations. Lesson number 8. We were able to leverage the right focal persons amongst the parties, amongst ourselves in the Commission, through Chairperson Faki, and assuring each one that this was a sacred duty to promote peace on our continent. Lesson 9. Everyone knew what he was supposed to do, he or she was supposed to do, in terms of delegation of responsibilities, even amongst the parties, leading to confidentiality and ensuring that, yes, we had one or two issues at the beginning, but we also had to work tirelessly to support everyone, the host, the mediators, the commission, and the parties. I recall, Excellencies, that the very first night before the opening, we visited former Foreign Minister, former Minister of International Cooperation and of South Africa, Madame Pando. And she said, do you have an agenda? And I said to her, Minister, we do not believe that an agenda will work drafted by the African Union, that we had delegated this responsibility to the parties. Then he said, okay, Commissioner, please go around tonight, visit the two parties in their far apart locations and find out what will be their main agenda point. I visited her brother, Getachew, and he said, silencing the guns. Excellencies, many think that silencing the guns is a slogan. It is in our conscience as Africans, because that's what it was, silencing the guns in Tigray. I went to Ambassador Redwan, who virtually said the same thing. Cessation of hostilities, immediate, unconditional, for the sake of the people of Tigray. Excellencies, lesson number 10. The cessation of hostilities agreement is one of the most comprehensive that we've had in the African Union. It addressed all the complex issues of disarmament, demobilization, reintegration, rehabilitation, interim administration, and the deployment of what we call the MCVM, the Monitoring, Compliance, and Verification Mechanism. Excellencies, it was very instructive. Finally, lesson 11. Any peace agreement is a means to an end, and that end is lasting peace and stability. This is what we have from Pretoria. Let me acknowledge, Excellencies, the high-level panel. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has been a pillar to this crisis. He showed dexterity, he showed interest and commitment. And we had, I must say today, at tough times. But in the end, it was all for the glory of peace in Tigray. So personally, we salute your courage, sir, and that of also of former President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta. Dr. Punzile always reminded us, don't forget the women and children of Tigray. Don't forget the schools that are closed. Don't forget the university students that are out of school. It was a dream team, as the Americans would say. Excellencies, the parties were marvelous in believing in the African Union. And I can tell you a secret today. The first thing they said after silencing the guns and cessation of hostilities was that they would start with the principles. And I recall Minister Gideon, who was then Justice Minister, briefing us that after almost a full day, they had come to the conclusion on two principles. One, Excellencies, the full respect of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ethiopia. And secondly, that Ethiopia will have one national army. I whispered to Baba and to the panel members that our job is done, because those principles eventually set and dictated the pace for peace in Ethiopia. The observers, as I said, were very active, supportive, and their insights remain invaluable to us. IGAD, the United Nations, and the United States of America. As we moved towards peace, we engaged with the Peace and Security Council, the African Development Bank, the United States, Norway, the European Union, United Kingdom, Germany, Denmark, Ireland, the International Committee of the Red Cross. Until this process, I never knew they had their own special aircraft. And they ferried the panel many times to Mekelle and beyond. The same must be said of the Norwegian Refugee Council and the Office of the Coordination on Humanitarian Affairs of the United Nations. Excellencies, we must also pay kudos to 3 countries that have continuously been serving in the monitoring, compliance, and verification mission. The Republic of South Africa, the Republic of Kenya, and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Since January 2023, we have been working together to make sure that the peace deal is monitored swiftly. In conclusion, knowledge, commitment, leadership, Pan-Africanism, overall peace will continue to guide us. Excellencies, what I pray for, what I believe Chairperson Faki will always, including in his memoirs, sir, we expect you to write your experiences, is to say that Tigray, the African Union, made a mark. In Tigray, the African Union was at work to develop a peaceful and lasting solution to a crisis that was bitter. I thank you so much.
We give our commissioner who has a new mandate for the next 4 years another round of applause. Thank you.
But I have to thank the chairperson of the AU, not only for guiding this process, but for everything that he has done for us in the AU. And thank him for having been the one that was there at this time when we needed him most. And wish him good luck, and I'm looking forward to buying his book once it is written. So you have no choice, say, we are all expecting the book. I also want to thank you, Commissioner, firstly congratulate you for your re-election, as well as thank you also for the hard work. You were a taskmaster, but you made sure that we were going in the right direction. Definitely, I was honored to join Baba's team and thank him for his leadership, because he led our panel and assisted us to get to the point where the guns were silenced. I want to also thank the African Union for its leadership and for affording us an opportunity to be part of this work, which was about Africa and for Africa. It certainly was not too much to ask for us to do this work, because in some ways, this is the work we all exist to do whenever an opportunity is given. So I'm very thankful for having had this opportunity. It was challenging, but also encouraging. And the most encouraging aspect of this work was the fact that the two parties, the government of Ethiopia and the TPLA, and I would say in that spirit, the people of Tigray, wanted to silence the guns. I think that in any peace process that anyone embarks upon, it's difficult to get to a point where you can say there's peace if the parties that are handling the guns don't want to stop. So probably the biggest advantage of this process was the fact that there was yen for peace. I also want to say it was also, I think, important that the parties knew each other. They were not strangers. So at different points in the most difficult parts of the negotiations, it was good to see the connection that now and again erupted, which at some point, as Baba said, we saw them being able to speak in a language they both understood. But obviously, not everything was easy, because they all had very strong views. At any given point, whenever one of the party felt strongly about a view, they did not mind to keep us awake all night while they discussed and sent us back and came back and disagreed. And I think the biggest lesson there to learn is patience, because it was not going back. It was going forward, but with difficulties. I also want to highlight the fact that the presence of the parties that were assisting us and supporting us, the United Nations, IGAD, the government of Kenya, of Nigeria, of South Africa, who were with us every step of the way, meant that we had people that we can go to and consult now and again. But this process was an African-led process. We were able to bring to bear everything that we could, which was from Africa. And I think this is helping us to respect the strength that we have in the ideas that are coming from Africa. I want to agree with Dr. Ba that the absence of women was a sore point and is still a sore point. I think this process would never reach the final end until the women have a critical role to play. You cannot solve people's problems without them. They are a big component of this, and they are peacemakers, they are leaders in their own right. So the challenge is still out there for making sure that the women play the role that they are supposed to play. We also have not reached the end in the sense that, as Baba highlighted, some of the areas that we have not covered fully. We have to make sure that everything that we agreed we were going to do in the agreement is done in order to protect the gains that we have already made. The gains are significant. We must never underestimate that. But there's still more that we can do in order for us to seal this deal and to give every person who was affected by this conflict the confidence they need and the everlasting peace that we wish for. I also want to thank you for working with us the way that you did, for engaging us happily and angrily at different times. And I do hope that the work that we're able to do with you will continue to support the peace process until we can say that everything is done and we can put the full stop. Thank you.
Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and AU High Representative for the Horn of Africa, and member of the AU High Level Panel for the Ethiopian Peace Process, Excellency Dr. Phumzile Mlambo Ngwankwa, former Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa and member of the AU High Level Panel and the Panel of the Wise, my compatriots, representatives of the Interim Regional Administration and the TPLF, Commissioner Ambassador Bankole Adoye, and colleagues from Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is fitting that, as His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed completed for their services as part of the AU monitoring, verification, and compliance mechanism. The panel, the monitors, and the parties have received professional support from Commissioner Bankole and Dr. Alhaj Sarjo Ba and their colleagues. I take this opportunity to express our deep appreciation to all partner organizations and states that have contributed to the peace process, their financial support, as well as to the monitoring mechanism, as well as the DDR process, and in the form of humanitarian assistance and support to the rehabilitation of the region. At the end of the day, agreeing to and implementing the peace agreement is fully the responsibility of Ethiopians on both sides of the negotiating table. The best example the Pretoria Agreement sets for other cases is that it was founded on fundamental objectives and principles beyond silencing the gun. For instance, our two sides agreed to reject violence as a matter of resolving political differences and respect for the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and unity of Ethiopia, as well as legality and respect for constitutional norms and principles enshrined in the Constitution. These objectives and principles, as foundations of the agreement, guide us to redouble our efforts to guarantee full implementation of the peace agreement. Another lesson that the Pretoria Peace Agreement could give, and something that would be worth recalling, is the fact that it was relatively comprehensive. It covers areas that are necessary to ensure a durable ceasefire, build confidence among the parties, return former combatants to civilian lives, ensure accountability, redress, truth-telling, healing, and reconciliation through transitional justice, and return to full constitutionalism and rule of law. The lasting legacies of this African Union-led, Ethiopian-owned Pretoria process must be full local ownership of the process and dedicated implementation of the agreement. We must continue rebuilding confidence between the two sides and enhance direct dialogue to make sure that belligerent rhetoric has no place in national and regional discourse, and reject overtures to or from spoilers of peace in our country, whether local or foreign. Excellencies, dear friends, the commitment of the government of Ethiopia to the Pretoria Peace Agreement cannot and should not be questioned. It has been engaged, we have been engaged with our partners for peace in dialogue and constant negotiations. We have deployed substantial resources and taken steps to make it easier to transit back to normal constitutional governance in the region, going beyond what is provided in the peace agreement. The way ahead must continue through dialogue and constructive engagement, and importantly, strict adherence to the rule of law. With good faith implementation, as provided in the peace agreement, we are convinced that the remaining and outstanding important measures are within our reach and could be fulfilled. In closing, I reiterate my thanks to Chairperson Faki for convening this event, and I extend the best wishes of the government of Ethiopia and the people of Ethiopia in your future endeavor. Thank you.
Getachew, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I don't think I'm going to apologize for trying to intimidate you if I really did try to intimidate you. Excellency Musafaki Mohammed, outgoing chairperson of the EU Commission, Chief Obasanjo, he forgot to mention that Chief Obasanjo came to Mekelle 8 times. And of course with him also came drones. So we're lucky that Chief Obasanjo came 8 times, and it gave us the opportunity to at least stop the drones. And that, I believe, is what it means to silence the guns. And once again, I would like to thank the AU and its people for taking the opportunity to take ownership of the process. And I also would like to take this opportunity to reflect that I wish this was a moment would take to thank each other, greet each other, that we have accomplished everything when it comes to not just only silencing the guns in Tigray, but also carrying out all the objectives that were particularly mentioned in the Pretoria Agreement. And I have every reason to believe that with continued engagement, we'll still have the opportunity to make sure that what the AU by way of slogan says African solutions to African problems is indeed a reality. And I look forward to being part of that process, and we still have a long way to go before we can rest on our laurels. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you here, Chief Obasanjo, Uhuru Kenyatta, Madam Fuzile, my friend Al Haji. He's bragging that he wasn't intimidated, but whatever I did and whatever he did, at least gave us reason to believe that something could be done under the auspices of the EU. And as my friend Gideon here, a stickler for details, he wasn't just a justice minister. He was the guy who gave us a run for your money, as it were. But looking back on Pretoria, all I can see is the first experience I had. Commissioner Bankole was telling me what the engagement looked like with Minister Pandor. the first impression we had was we're kept in the DIRCO office. We're not even allowed to go out of that particular premise, not even for a walk. So I felt like we're being forced into some kind of I mean, we're expected to cough up a solution, or else you'll not be allowed to go. But again, you know, the continued engagement after 10 days gave rise to the kind of conclusion that I particularly am proud we have achieved. Silencing the guns in 2030 is, I thought when this was launched, I thought this was too much of a task. I have reason to believe that silencing the guns should not have been too much of a task. And it's obvious that what we did in Pretoria clearly showed that as long as there is commitment on both sides, it's not entirely difficult to silence the guns. But unfortunately, silencing the guns is not the end of the story. And AU leadership, I clearly, one of the lessons that you've been alluding to is AU leadership. AU leadership is good, but it's not entirely good enough, because yes, finance is one thing, FDB has been doing this and that, but for our engagements to go beyond the slogans, for our engagements to result in the kinds of outcomes that we all would cherish, the engagement of other parties, as you have rightly pointed out, is quite critical. One of the things that I should point out at this point in time is that although the observers were relevant in many ways, the fact that they were not there as guarantors of the agreement has had its own negative impact on the speed with which the implementation of the Pretoria Agreement was taken care of. And of course, it's a good thing that the specificities and complexities of the problem in Tigray, or other conflicts for that matter, was something that needed to be taken into account, simply because, you know, one of the issues I had with AU people was this conflict was in Addis Ababa, the capital of Africa, and any conflict that happens in the northern part of Ethiopia, which is cradle of civilization and which is the most integral part of the Ethiopian civilization, should not have been left for people to sort out. Of course, the AU should have played and should continue to play a much stronger and a much nuanced role in addressing this issue, because any conflict in Ethiopia and any conflict in the capital of Africa simply would end up upending any peace process and any process to address the issue of silencing the guns in the entire Africa region. And of course, taking into account the specificities and the complexity of the problem, I think it's a lesson well learned, but I hope and expect that lesson to be taken seriously. And for AU, now that Commissioner Bankole has a renewed mandate, will take into account more seriously than ever. The fact that the observers were not guarantors has caused its own problems, but still we have to continue to engage the people who have the best interest of Ethiopia, the best interest of Africa in mind. Whether or not they are the ones who are going to foot the bill or not is secondary as far as we're concerned. Another point I would like to raise, the scope of the cessation of hostilities agreement is about silencing of the guns, but it should go beyond that. We still have issues that cannot be taken care of unless there is a continued engagement. There are external actors involved in the conflict, and whatever we do is not going to take away from the equation that there are other parties involved in this conflict. And unfortunately for us, they are not party to the Pretoria Agreement. And the kind of continued engagement by the international community is going to remain critical. And I think this is something we should always be mindful of. Peace agreements are not, as you have rightly pointed out, are not an end, but they are a means to an end. I still consider what Madam Fuzile had to say about the involvement of women in the negotiation process. The most important contribution Madam Fuzile had was not her presence as a woman, but more importantly, her continued advocacy of the cause of women and children. And I would like to once again call upon the AU, the international community, to still consider the kind of suffering women and children in Tigray have to go through right now as we speak. And it's not just about the presence of women members in the negotiating team that matters. Of course, it matters a lot. But the most important focus for us should be whether the issue of women and children is given the kind of attention it deserves, and richly so. There are a number of issues we haven't yet addressed. DDR, you know, most of the focus of the international community was the first D in the DDR process, the disarmament process. But the most important aspect for us is whether we disarm should not be the end. Whether we demobilize and reinstate the people who have been combatants because they had a cause to believe in is something that should be taken into account. And of course, the international community, the AU, should take this process seriously, and it should continue to press all of us to focus on this part of the Pretoria arrangement. But to conclude, I would say the most important focus should be the return of IDPs and the return of IDPs to the constitutionally mandated territories of Tigray. And the Constitution clearly requires that we address this issue and address it in a manner that ensures sustainable peace and security in the entire region. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank not just Musa Faki Mohammed and Commissioner Bankole and Chief of Basanjo and Uhuru Kenyatta and Madam Fuzile, but my friend Al-Haj, who had difficulty taking my phone calls because I'd be making all kinds of threats, but we'll continue to engage the AU, our panel members, and those who are going to take over as the heads of the AU Commission. And more importantly, we'll continue to engage our friends, Gideon, and hopefully he's going to learn more diplomatic language than he used to when we were in Pretoria, when he was obviously pushing the envelope every now and then. You would understand that. And we'll definitely remain the course. We'll definitely continue to commit ourselves to the cause of peace. And we'll call on the international community, the AU, the federal government, and all parties involved to make sure that the women and children who are suffering needlessly in squalid conditions in IDP camps are returned to where they belong. Thank you once again. I yield the floor to my colleague.
Member of the high-level panel, Excellency Ambassador Bankole Adoy, Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. I congratulate you, Ambassador, for your election again. Honorable representatives of the federal government, Excellencies, Special Envoys, Excellencies, I am honored to address this esteemed assembly to launch the African Union-led lessons learned on the Pretoria peace process in Tigray, a process that has significantly influenced the trajectory of peace and stability in our region. The signing of the Pretoria Agreement marked a pivotal moment, bringing an end to hostilities between the federal government of Ethiopia and the Tigray regional state. We extend our profound gratitude to the African Union, the high-level panel, and all observers whose unwavering commitment made this achievement possible. Excellencies, while the Pretoria Agreement stands as a testament to the potential of African solutions to African challenges, it is incumbent upon us to engage in a candid assessment of the journey thus far. Such introspection is vital to fortify the foundations of peace and to address any impediments that may jeopardize our collective progress. I hope we all agree that the true measure of a peace accord lies not solely in its signing, but in its fruitful execution. In this regard, we have yet to go a long way before the Pretoria Agreement we all celebrated and impressed is fully and meaningfully implemented. Excellencies, while the cessation of hostilities has been a significant milestone, we must acknowledge that critical components such as the constitutional restoration of the occupied territories, the withdrawal of non-NDF forces, and the resettlement of displaced persons, as well as the Tplf legal reinstatement, require accelerated action. The failure in convening the original scheduled meeting of last November has raised serious concerns surrounding the extended delays in the implementation of the key pillars of the agreement. It's imperative that all signatories demonstrate unwavering commitment to the terms agreed upon. At this critical moment, where the foundations of the Pretoria Agreement are put into question, the AU's and the international community's continued engagement are essential. I also believe that enhancing the monitoring and verification mechanisms is critical to ensure adherence to the agreement and bolster confidence among all stakeholders. Excellencies, in conclusion, the Pretoria Agreement symbolizes a beacon of hope for lasting peace in Ethiopia. To transform this hope into enduring reality, we must collectively demonstrate unwavering commitment and honor our obligations, ensuring that the agreement's provisions are fully realized. Let us seize this opportunity to reaffirm our collective dedication to peace, stability, and the well-being of all Ethiopians. Through collaborative efforts and steadfast resolve, we can ensure that the promise of the Pretoria Agreement is fully realized for the benefit of our nation and the broader nation. Thank you.
Well, we'll remember that. Excellencies, this now brings us to the formal launch of the report, the lessons learned of the Commission. His Excellency Chief Obasanjo, Dr. Pumzile, and Commissioner Bankole to formally launch these lessons to the Interim Regional Administration President Getachew. So we may request you to... Okay. Yeah, so...
Premier de cet événement de cet après-midi n'est nullement de l'autosatisfaction et moins encore la recherche d'une quelconque gloire.
Okay. The chair is saying he believes the first objective of this evening is neither for auto-glorification, nor about the auto-satisfaction on the process, self-satisfaction, sorry.
Le plus important, c'est de tirer des leçons d'une expérience.
It is most importantly about drawing lessons of an experience.
Parce qu'aujourd'hui, le continent africain fait face à des défis en matière de paix et de sécurité.
Because today, the African continent is faced with serious challenges on issues of peace and security.
Et les leçons, elles peuvent être bonnes comme mauvaises pour être à même de servir pour le futur.
And these may be good or bad lessons, but we need to understand them towards addressing the challenges of the future.
Moi, personnellement, ce qui m'a marqué, c'est la maturité des acteurs eux-mêmes. Ce n'est pas par hasard, peut-être, l'Éthiopie est un pays à une culture très, très ancienne, millénaire. Peut-être que c'est un pays qui n'a pas été colonisé. Et donc, le tempérament des gens est un tempérament assez particulier. Ça, c'est quelque chose que moi, j'ai retenu personnellement.
Personally, I noted the maturity of the parties, and perhaps it has a cultural undertone, as Ethiopia is a country that was never colonized, and it was remarkable to watch the parties engage.
Autant il était tellement ferme, et parfois même peut-être extrémiste sur certaines de leurs positions, autant, quand il s'est agi de leur pays, ils ont pu surmonter ça pour se mettre au-dessus dans l'intérêt de leur pays. Et ça, c'est quelque chose de remarquable.
Inasmuch as the parties would hold strong positions at certain points, it was also impressive to note how they could overcome this for the greater interest of the country.
Le premier jour, après la cérémonie d'ouverture, ils ont refusé la traditionnelle photo de famille.
On the first day, the opening ceremony, they did decline to have a group photo together.
Moi, le même jour, le soir, je suis parti au Canada. Donc, j'ai quitté Johannesburg jusqu'à New York, 16 heures de vol. Ensuite, 1h30 pour aller à Ottawa, parce que j'avais une mission là-bas.
On the same evening, I had to leave for Canada, a 16 hours flight, because I had another mission in Canada.
Alors, le lendemain, j'ai rencontré le secrétaire d'État américain Blinken.
The next day, I met with Secretary of State Blinken.
Alors, il a dit, Moussa, quelle est ton impression? Est-ce que ça va marcher à Pretoria?
And he wanted to know my impressions with regards to the Pretoria process.
Je lui ai dit, mon cher ami, les gens qui ont refusé de faire la photo, ça m'étonnerait qu'ils puissent s'entendre. Donc, je n'étais pas optimiste.
I wasn't optimistic at the time, and I told him that people who had declined to take a group photo, it was quite difficult to tell.
Alors, par la suite, quand quelques jours après, on m'a appelé, Bancolé m'a appelé, il m'a dit, non, les gens nous ont dit de sortir, nous on va parler dans notre langue. Et puis, ils ont commencé à se parler eux-mêmes. J'ai vu qu'il y a quelque chose qu'ils ont mis au-dessus de leur dissension.
I will try to guess. They were saying that we're in the hall, we saw that they were talking between themselves. So we thought that they were, in quote, cooking up something. So we allowed them to be there.
Donc ça, c'est vraiment une très belle surprise pour moi personnellement.
So this was a major surprise for me.
Donc ça, c'est une leçon que j'ai retenue. La deuxième, c'est le choix des médiateurs.
So that was the first lesson that I learned, and the second one was the choice of mediators.
Parce que le président Obasanjo, c'est un chef traditionnel, un général qui est devenu président. Je crois que lui aussi, culturellement, et son expérience de la guerre du Biafra, en tout cas, c'est une personnalité qui, aujourd'hui, dans notre continent, est assez particulière. Quoi que vous lui disiez, il est difficile de le sortir de ses gonds. Il est stoïque. Et ça, c'est quelque chose d'extraordinaire.
Secondly, President Obasanjo, who had been a traditional chief, had been a general and became a president, and obviously for him, and he has had the experience, the vast experience of the war in Biafra. So he's a person who is stoic. You cannot get him out of that framework within which he is. And that is something that is striking as a personality whom we have on the continent, which is special.
Donc pour des missions de cette nature, il est capable d'écouter de jour et de jour sans se fatiguer et essayer d'accepter, essayer de comprendre. Ça, c'est un avantage.
So for him, this is a mission. He can listen for days and days on. He doesn't get tired, and that is something which is very special and important.
Il n'était pas la bienvenue à Mekelle au départ.
He was not welcome in Mekelle before, in the beginning.
Malgré tout ça, là, il a insisté, il a beaucoup insisté, et en compagnie de des membres du panel, je crois que cette insistance a porté ses fruits.
In fact, he insisted and he kept insisting, and with members of the panel, I think in the end, he managed to overcome that problem and convince the others.
La troisième leçon que je retiens, c'est également le processus n'a pas été parasité. Il a été essentiellement entre Éthiopiens et les intervenants en dehors d'eux étaient très limités en nombre et ça a également été positif.
I think this process was not parasited, and therefore it remained within the Ethiopians themselves, and therefore there was limited intervention from others, so that was also very helpful.
Et vraiment d'expérience, moi aussi je viens d'un pays qui a connu la guerre civile pendant longtemps. J'ai été réfugié, j'ai été également moitié combattant, donc je n'étais pas surpris par la férocité de la guerre, mais également, je vois l'ambassadeur de France, je crois que c'était Clémenceau qui disait que lâche devant la guerre, brave devant l'ennemi, telle doit être la devise des vrais généraux. Alors, c'est ce que j'ai ressenti. Ces gens-là, quand ils font la guerre, ils font la guerre, mais ce sont des gens qui n'aiment pas la guerre. Et ça, quand vous avez affaire à des gens comme ça, la médiation est plus facile.
So I think this explains the fact that I also come from a country which had known and experienced civil war. I've been a refugee, I've been a half combatant, and therefore I've seen the fierceness of war and fighting going on. I think the ambassador of France is here, can say that Clemenceau said, you have to be sort of weak in front of, in the war, but brave in front of the enemy. And this is what I think motivates people like that, so that they come up with something that you cannot take away from them, and in that way, they are able to stand the test of time.
Je sais que le problème est très complexe, comme la plupart des problèmes africains, avec plusieurs composants, mais le fait que les gens aient accepté d'arrêter les hostilités, d'avoir accepté de parler, de se parler en face à face, et continuer ce processus, c'est une leçon importante à tirer.
I think the problem is obviously very complex, like in many African conflicts and other problems. There are many different dimensions and aspects of it, and but the good thing is that at least the belligerents, those who are in the hostility, accepted to talk and talk face to face. And I think that is a very important aspect to be taken, and a lesson to learn therefrom.
Nullement on peut dire que c'est parfait. Il faut le reconnaître honnêtement. Merci.
In other words, you can say it is perfect, and thank you very much.
Representatives here remain seated because the books will be distributed after the